They've had a lot of land for a long time. Obama did nothing about it. As far as the students, it's 500,000 students they come, good students.
So they own over 380,000 acres of American farmland. We own 0 acres of Chinese farmland. They have over 275,000 students who pledge allegiance to the Communist Chinese Party here in our schools. We have less than 1,000. How does that give us an advantage? Speaking of scammers, the Chinese. So let's be really clear about this. People are going, I don't know, there's a moral equation. Which market is going to be bigger? Which country is going to be the biggest economic force? Okay, the Chinese Communist Party, which basically means China as a whole, not the people, but its representation. Liars, thieves, tyrants, and they want to destroy your country and you, if you are in the United States of America. Let's start off with that. You understand that? So this makes it all the tougher to see President Trump's proposed policies, rhetoric, we don't know because nothing is finalized yet, in a positive light at all. It's not very good. We said we're waiting with bated breath to see what happens with China. No president has been tougher on China, but his rhetoric seems to have changed lately. He came back and discussed with Sean Hannity a few major issues as it relates to China, and I don't really know that President Trump, in representing his constituency and being America first on this one, I don't know how he could be more wrong, and if it's possible, not by much. So first, let's address this issue that we've discussed quite a bit, farmland and the Chinese buying our farmland therein.
The issue of Chinese students in our universities, more importantly in my mind, is that Chinese nationals have been buying up thousands and thousands of acres of farmland, ranch land, and land near military installations. Now, I would assume I'm in Beijing. If I wanted to buy property near one of their military installations, I don't think President Xi...
No, they wouldn't let you. I don't... Look, it's not that I love it. You want to see farm prices drop? You want to see farmers lose a lot of money? Just take that out of the market. But they've had a lot of land for a long time. Obama did nothing about it. They bought a lot of it during the Obama administration. He did nothing about it.
Yeah, and so what are you going to do? And it sounds like nothing. And I'd like to present to you, something that maybe sounds reasonable in theory, but how it is played out in real time. I present to you the final act, the Screw-stige. Because little bits of myself are left in a box under the stage every time. So remember I've told you in the past, hey, look at what the opposing side is saying or what they're doing, and that'll give you a pretty good idea as to what their strategy is. Let's look at Chinese ownership of farmland in the United States. It's like 380,000 acres. Somewhere around there, you can check the references. Our ownership of Chinese land, 0 acres.
Ooh, that's not good numbers.
No.
We got to pump those up.
380,000 to 0. Why do you think that is? Now, the Chinese are also very, very clear in the United States is this awful place that will fall and it needs to crumble. For crying out loud, they release troll videos. So they want us to do poorly, right? That is their goal. So most of their policies would be what they view as most effective to ensure a poor outcome for the United States. They let us buy 0 acres. Why do we let them have any? Now, I understand the point that I think he's making there. It doesn't make this argument any more valid. Yeah, I guess if you just took it from the Chinese, 380,000 acres, and that was up for grabs, of course, you've just increased the supply, so the demand would go down and prices would go down. And maybe it's not so much that he's beholden to the Chinese, but he's more beholden to the farming lobby, which, by the way, in this country, they are not your friends. You think that the big farming lobby, this is why we say APAC can go screw themselves, but you need to be aware of other lobbying groups and organizations like unions, particularly teachers, particularly public workers unions. The farming lobby screws you a lot, and they screw you a lot through policies that fundamentally transform the economy. Like we've discussed, corn subsidies. And it's like a third rail because it's such a big deal in government. Here's what is certain. None of this makes sense. None of this is good for you, the American worker.
Right.
When we're talking about America first, we're talking about you, the American taxpayer, who wants to be able to determine your own future and destiny. This is bad. They shouldn't be allowed to own land. And if it's because of the farming lobby, they shouldn't have the influence that they do.
Yeah, and he needs to do something about it other than say Obama. Right.
Yes.
And I think you maybe even mentioned that, but I want to just come back to it because I don't expect him to completely undo the past. I don't have expectations of him that are outside of his scope of authority and abilities, right? But I do expect him to kind of step up and go, hey, we got to stop this. This can't be something that we do going forward. And by the way, it wouldn't be very hard if you decided to take a stand on this and pull those 384,000 acres back to just say, hey, we'll do it, and then we will put it on the market over a period of time so that we don't cause a crash in the market.
Right.
It's not like you have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. We should never have let it happen in the first place. Fine. How about fix it? You're in the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that land is close to military installations. If it butts up to it, maybe you just annex that.
Yep.
And then you don't have extra farmland to worry about the market. Or like Gerald said, over time.
Well, I will tell you this. This is one where it gives critics of this administration, they have a point. And I think this is far more meaningful and impactful than the Epstein binder rollout, which was absolutely abysmal. But on a grand scale, this really does determine our direction in the future. Okay, here we go to China, specifically on President Trump. He was discussing with Sean Hannity. I believe the next one is regarding Chinese exchange students.
As far as the students, it's 500,000 students they come, good students. I could tell them, I don't want any students.
Yes.
Yes.
Is a very insulting thing to say to
So?
a country.
Okay.
They would then immediately go out and start building universities all over China. But if you
Good.
don't have those students, good students, by the way, if you don't, and we do another thing, if they're good and they want to stay in America, we won't give them a green card and things like that. And that not only them, but other countries. But if you want to see a university system die, take 500,000 people out of it. And the ones that
I can only get so
the
erect.
top schools, the top schools will do fine, but your lower schools, the ones that don't do quite as well, they'll be dying all over the place. I frankly think that it's good that people come from other countries and they learn our culture, and many of them want to stay here. I think it's good. Not everybody agrees with me, and it doesn't sound like a very conservative position. And I'm a conservative guy. I'm really a common sense guy, I think, more than a conservative guy. I think MAGA is common sense,
So before I get to it, what's common sense about allowing Chinese students to come here, get an education? Here's the thing. Many of them go back, just to be clear. Most of them, depending on the numbers you use, go back. And if they don't, and they stay here, how can you trust them? And then let's walk all the way down the trail that he presents. And many of the universities will close down. Good. If the universities require students approved by the Communist Chinese Party to come here and through any form of subsidy to stay afloat, they should go away.
They should have never been there.
They shouldn't be there. How about that? And that's where we now get to the end game, the screw-stige. Because we've been here for a long time. Every single Chinese student in the United States is approved by the Communist Party. You know that, right? Also, those who are sent to bang Eric Swalwell, allegedly. And the students who are on any kind of government scholarships, they sign a pledge of loyalty to the Communist Chinese Party. And we've seen huge problems with those people acting as spies here in the United States, being used to give leverage to the Communist Chinese Party. Let me give you the numbers, too. So the Chinese students in the United States right now, by the way, these trends have they've been consistent. They've been going up for Chinese in the U.S. and us there going down. But right now it sits at around 275,000 Chinese students in the United States. You know how many American students in China? Less than 1,000.
So when he says you take 500,000, you take 500,000 people out of the industry, of course it's going to crumble. We're not taking 500,000 people out of the industry.
Yeah,
There's not 500,000 people in that industry.
not right now. It's
There's 277,000.
Yeah, about 277,000.
But he wants to add. He wants to double that.
That's the way that it would come across, and he's been unclear with his words. This was I would say, arguably amongst the worst interviews that he's given.
Yeah, and listen, if you had people coming from a country, say like England wanted to send some people over to us, or France, or places like that are a little bit more closely aligned with kind of our values,
Canada,
and ideals, or something like that. Yeah, that's a different conversation to have. But when you've got a country that is absolutely 100% dead set against us, and They are trying everything that they can do with land purchases, everything else with rare earths, all of it. Their influence is how they get a foothold. Why would you? And he's like, oh, well, they'll go build their own universities. Fan-freaking-tastic. Guess what? Maybe that's money they're not spending on their military.
Yep.
And something that we won't have to deal with in the future, potentially.
Oh, great. Timu U.
Yeah.
A real big
not
threat to
afraid.
the Ivy Leagues in America.
Go screw yourselves. This one I just cannot. It boggles my mind that he's even on this page.
Yeah. So they own over 380,000 acres
Right.
of American farmland. We own 0 acres of Chinese farmland. They have over 275,000 students who pledge allegiance to the Communist Chinese Party here in our schools. We have less than 1,000. How does that give us an advantage? Can anyone make the case? I'm sure there's some libertarian there who's like, I don't believe in borders. Good. Go ahead and make the case.
Yeah.
Make the case so it sounds just as stupid to everyone else in the comments section as it does in the way I just said it.
Yeah, it's not like they're over here building our railroads.
Not anymore.
That's
No,
true.
they're taking all these student positions.
Although, you know what? You could bring back a couple of opium dens.
Yeah,
couple.
why not?
I mean,
Nevada, why
It's a
not?
couple. It's a
Low-dose.
little safer than fentanyl. Now let's go to trade. And this is one where President Trump has been stronger in the past, but it seems like he may not be going that direction again. Some of this is speculation because we don't know the official policy. The rhetoric isn't good. They're talking about trade deals supposedly being secured from their meeting there in Beijing.
New trade promises are emerging from a pivotal summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Here's what that looks like, at least so far. China agreeing to buy 200 Boeing jets. Beijing's also expected to commit $10 billion for American agriculture products with a new board of trade to help oversee tariffs.
So even if that happened to be true, I still don't see the benefit in the same way to the American worker. I know somebody say, well, bigger markets. Really, China's an export market. It's not really an import market, not enough to move the needle in the way that you would think, which brings us to the, if it happened to be true. No. Here's the screw Stige. We've been here before. It didn't happen. So from 2020, 2021, China committed to buying over $500 billion worth of exports from the United States. They only bought 58% of what they promised. And by the way, people will say, oh, that was because of COVID. No, they were still around, I think, 55% pre-COVID, post-COVID. They don't meet their obligations. The Chinese, they are a nation of liars. You understand that, right? When dealing with their government, their primary goal is to subvert American culture and for us, or for them, to ensure that we are no longer the world's economic superpower. And we've really enabled it. They went from a tchotchke economy to a potential adversary in the technology race. That doesn't happen without us propping them up. This is all concerning, especially considering that before his trip, he got some advice from a former president on how to deal with China.
Here's some advice. When dealing with the Chinese, they're like a dog whose bark is worse than their bite. But here's the thing about the Chinese. They eat the dogs. Isn't that silly? Like they never heard of a hot dog? Well, I guess that is their version of a hot dog, but anyways, I'm 75. I found that if you ignore their kablooey theater, the intimidation disappears. And that the Chinamen are very physically small in stature. And their asses are surprisingly easy to kick. Here's some advice.
That was good. He should have taken some of that.
Should, yeah.
It would have been nice for us to see. So with I'm not going to pivot to AI, I promise, but with everything going on in robotics and AI, it seems like that's really the only people. No, that's the only thing I'm going to mention on it. It seems like we just sent CEOs from those companies that stand to benefit the most from that and from working with China instead of sending some of the China hawks. Lane was talking about this earlier. We didn't send some people that were a little tougher on China. And so the die was kind of cast a little bit from the beginning. And the trade deals that they announced were very ho-hum. Like nobody looked at these and said, oh, good. Because we can hold their feet to the fire when they don't do what they said. There's no leverage really that we're willing to exercise on China to get this done. We have leverage. We're just not willing to exercise it. And on the student thing, just a final point. Like, I don't understand how you don't see this as president of the United States. When you have that many people coming in, it increases demand. When the demand goes up, the pricing tends to go up with it, especially if you're saying these are very smart students. And then you couple that with Elon Musk saying we don't have people trained in this. I wonder why. I wonder why you're taking up hundreds of thousands of spots every single year, pushing prices up and telling people that they have to go to the lower colleges. And you're not just saying like, oh, these people are coming in and filling the lower colleges. You're saying they're the best and brightest to compete with Americans and that we don't produce the kind of people that we need to. Well, maybe if college was a little less expensive, and maybe if they didn't just check the box on, well, this is a smart person from China and push the American student out of the way, maybe it would look a little different. What would it look like right now if this policy had been reversed years ago? China would have had to build their own institutions or flood the UK or somewhere else.
I'll tell you what this would look like if that policy had been reversed or never enacted,
right,
let's say, and no affirmative action. Colleges would be very white. Asian Americans, a lot, of course.
The
You've been to
people that deserve to
been to
get
Cal
in?
Poly.
Yeah,
I mean,
would get in.
they don't have drug dealers; they have ginseng dealers. It's like it is. But Asian Americans would do well, and so would white Americans.
Yes.
No DEI, no affirmative action, and we're not allowing people from adversarial nations. It would look very similar to how college has looked in the past. That would be the natural order of things. And I know you say, well, some people don't have opportunities. No. Public schools, far more spending per pupil in areas where black Americans are overrepresented.
Right.
That playing field has been leveled, by the way. It should be leveled completely in that we should do away with it and, let's just say, apply a student voucher program, if anything. But yeah, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
We can't do that. All of this has been done. And then you know what else? It would be less expensive if you couldn't afford it. And if you weren't willing to work your way through it. There wouldn't be a grant. There wouldn't be a scholarship.
Yeah.
So they would have to charge a reasonable price or they would go out of business. When you talk about industries that you hate, they have been propped up by special interest groups. And this is why the conversation regarding APAC that people have, and I've said they can go screw themselves with a wire brush, but it does take your eye off of what truly affects you on a day-to-day basis. If you look at education, specifically college, I mean, skyrocketing costs. They've ballooned out of control. If you look at the healthcare sector, you look at insurance companies, you look, for example, at American auto manufacturing and airlines. Guess what? You look at energy. These are all companies that are heavily subsidized and have been propped up on behalf of special interests. And by that, I mean special interests not representing the vast majority of Americans. You are not represented by the American Auto Workers Union. Do you have any idea how much pull they have over the government? You are not represented by any of the unions or the lobbyists for airlines, but do you have any idea how much pull they have? You are not represented by any of the teachers' unions or by any of the lobbying groups for higher education. Do you have any idea how much pull they have? Same thing with insurance companies. And so when you're looking at education, just as an example, you have the interests, of course, in public schools before that of teachers' unions, of all kinds of educational unions. You look at the administrative costs, how they ballooned out of control. Then you look at colleges, by the way, who, of course, get all kinds of grants and subsidies, and so they make it unaffordable. And you have student loan forgiveness. And then you look at the vested interest of a foreign nation like China, and they have been pushing to get more exchange students in. And you have a government that says, sure. Let's give you more money, more grants, more scholarships. Let's make sure that you have some kind of relief if you're financially struggling. And yeah, you know what? Let's do this because it'll improve relations with China. Think about, banks. I forgot banks. Have you tried to do any significant banking, like with, I don't know, Bank of America, Chase, take, the McDonald's of banks? They don't want people who are actually looking to grow their money. Their business model, the reason that you will be on the phone with someone from New Delhi for 8 hours is because their model is improve nothing, screw the customer, and get a bailout eventually. It's the same thing with education, insurance, airlines, American auto manufacturing, big banks. The industries that you hate, these are not bastions of unregulated freedom. It's not the Wild West of big banking. It's not the Wild West of higher education. And people keep pointing to them and go, we need more government. More government means more so in the pockets of these big unions and special lobbying groups. And there are many of them. Yeah. None of this is in the best interest of you, the American worker taxpayer. The average American who doesn't work for the federal government, who doesn't have a public job but works in the private sector, pays taxes, and is trying to raise a family. These other industries are designed to lobby the government to fleece you. All those industries that I've just mentioned, that is why your quality of life perhaps has gone down in those facets. Those are the areas. Now, the areas where your quality of life has improved, and this is the argument that I see here, people keep missing each other. Housing, of course. People keep missing each other. We have young people going, it's terrible, there's no opportunity, thanks boomers, and then boomers going, well, why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? And actually, you guys have air conditioning and bigger house and more square footage. Both of those things are true. But if you look, for example, where costs have gone down, technology, for example, food, access to more food, access to healthier food, in some cases, transportation, right? These are technological advances. These are not the same as the systemic problems that younger people face in housing, in education, in banking, and what loans look like, and the ability to generate enough capital to invest. So the solution is, hey, we see progress. For example, people often point to a phone or a flat screen TV. It's far less expensive now than it was 15, 20 years ago. That's absolutely true. That's the natural advancement of a free market. Can we apply that to education? Can we apply that to health insurance and our currently broken system? Can we apply that to airlines? Just apply the approach in industries where it works and you've seen an improvement in quality of life to the areas where we've seen the opposite. And instead the solution is more money, please, more money, please, more money, please. Well, once you do that and the industry is too big to be supported by an actual consumer base here in the United States, right, foreign government's going to help or some big-ass lobbying groups. That makes sense? President Trump has been tougher on China than any other president. Like I've said, that's true. But this does not seem like he's going the right direction. It's also why I've said in the past and why he won't be on the show and won't ever post any of our stuff. Elon Musk did a great thing by purchasing X. He also might be the Antichrist. Now, probably not, because people overuse that. That's hyperbole. Yeah. But if you look at his stance on China and you look at his stance on H-1Bs and you look at his stance on issues that would fundamentally harm and transform America, they're not great. He's cool on freedom of speech and trans and kids. The rest of it, a lot of damage would be done if Elon Musk had his way. And he was there. So what do we get out of this with China? That's really the question, right? America first means what do you get? What do you get by us allowing Chinese to purchase farmland? Can anyone answer that to me? What do you get by us allowing more Chinese exchange students coming here? What do you get? Can anyone answer? What do you get if they, even though to come here they have to pledge allegiance to the Communist Chinese Party, they come here and they defect and they become a part of the workforce? What do you get out of it? What do we get if they purchase 50% of the exports from the United States? Like you just saw, agricultural products. What do you get? Do we have any answers? Are they going to help us reopen the Strait of Hormuz? Are they still part of the unholy alliance with Russia and Iran, the part that we don't say out loud? It does make it pretty tough to make the case that when you look at Venezuela and you look at what we've done with energy and you look at what's happening with Iran, that all of this was triangulating China, his rhetoric on Cuba, when it just seems like we go, yeah, and we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing and maybe be a little more lenient. I'd love to have anyone from the administration on to answer this, because I think we've been fair, and I'm certainly not going to vote Democrat. I'm precluded from that.
Right.
But this direction, hey, guess what? Critics, not leftist critics, those on the right have a point if you keep going this direction.
Yeah, and I think you made the right kind of split here. It's rhetoric versus action. So the rhetoric is all we have right now in some of this, not looking great. What he actually ends up doing, we'll see, because maybe there's some other stuff going on behind the scenes.
We don't know.
Trying to figure out right now, and they've got a lot of leverage points, and they don't want to do anything to make the Chinese lose face in the midst of that. I have no idea.
Say it correctly.
That's a charitable Chinese.
There, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't tolerate.
China is asshole.
That guy gets it.
He's understood it for a very long time.
He should be our ambassador.
He is. He's just in jail.
And he should be shot collared unless he says only that phrase.
Forever? What would you like for lunch today?
It's like Marcus Aurelius had one of his, I believe it was one of his servants or advisors, lean into his ear, and every day he would consistently say, "You are just a man, you are just a man, you are just a man," to remind him, right, as an emperor. President Trump needs that in his meetings with China. Just every couple of minutes, that man to lean into his ear. Don't trust China. China is asshole. And go back, fade back into the mist. Just every day.
Thank you.
Trump, don't trust China. China is asshole.
Oh, thank you. I needed that.
Appreciate that. That's right. Screw you, Xi.
Upon further reflection, Xi, I have been reminded that you are in fact an asshole, and how about no deal? YouTube's is something you're not allowed to say according to the guidelines. I was quoting the guidelines. I'm glad you're still here. It means you watched this video all the way through. Oh, it says here that Rumble, where you can go follow my channel, lets you say pretty much anything, provided it's not illegal. That reminds me of, what does it remind me of? Oh, yeah. YouTube, pre-2015. Go on and follow me there. I'm live, 11 a.m. Eastern, weekdays. Don't call YouTube a. Oh, it's just a different way of saying it's.